Hello, it's a Trial by Stone. Okay, so, little note. I have light, again. It's just gonna be yellow. So, there you are. I'll take out these to make it easier. So, tonight I'm reviewing Sukiyaki Western Django. That's a heck of a title. So, if you couldn't guess, this is a riff on the Django franchise. Because if you didn't know, it's a franchise. It got really famous recently from Quentin Tarantino's film starring Jamie Foxx titled Django Unchained. Got a lot of buzz, some negative because of how violent it was, but who cares? It's movie violence. It's a fake world, so it doesn't matter. Anyway, hot topic, but I personally really love that movie. And that was one of the films that really made Tarantino one of my all-time favorite directors, and as I've dove headfirst into his filmography, he's become my favorite director. But because of Django and it pretty much becoming my favorite Western at the time, it made me want to go back and delve into those films that inspired him. And that led me to Django, that came out in like I want to say 1964. I might be wrong though. Starring Franco Nero, who actually appears in Django Unchained as a slave owner or something. And I love that film. It is the original Django is just fantastic. I absolutely love it, and I now own a pretty sick Arrow blue-gray limited edition. So check that out, my Arrow video collection, which is coming out soon. Not to plug myself, but yeah. Anyway, so that led me to that. Lo and behold, there's a whole franchise of Django films, like Django Prepare a Coffin, Django Shoot First, something. And there's a lot, and they all have really long titles, and the majority of them are Italian, making them spaghetti westerns. But another one that came out in 2007, which was directed by the famed director of many great films, a few I've watched. He's pretty instantly became one of my favorite directors. Was Takashi Miike. He's pretty well known for directing 13 Assassins or Blade of the Immortal, which is pretty new. Is pretty underrated in my opinion, and got really famous for directing the Asia Extreme Audition, which is a fantastic horror film that I really love, that I also have an Arrow Blu-ray of. Anywho, he directed Sukiyaki Western Django in 2007, which is basically him making a spoof-ish film that riffs on the American Western, but splicing it with the Japanese samurai film, which is extremely interesting because samurai films from like the late 60s, 70s were inspired by like John Ford, John Wayne westerns of the American westerns of like the 30s and 40s, which is interesting because when the samurai films that were inspired by the westerns of the 40s and stuff came out, that then inspired a bunch of Italian directors from Italy in like the late 60s, 70s to then go back and revitalize the western genre by making spaghetti westerns with people like Sergio Leone directing Good, Bad, and the Ugly and Fistful of Dollars and Few Dollars More and Fistful of Dynamite. I think he directed the Fistful of Dynamite. But anywho, it basically spawned all these other directors, which included Terrence Hill. I want to say it was Terrence Hill who directed the first Django, which is awesome. And so this movie is a big melting pot of all these genres brought together into this one film that is very interesting. And from what I understand, it didn't get a lot of love when it first came out. Like, a lot of people just did not get it. It's got a pretty it's got a fairly modest Rotten Tomatoes score. I think it's out of 57, maybe. That's just off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Yeah, and so, yeah, it's just a very interesting film. So, I really enjoyed it. I think it is. It's a good movie. I liked a whole lot about it, specifically the ending. The ending in the beginning. I think it runs a little bit too long. It's only an hour 38 minutes though, so yeah, I don't really know what I'd cut because it's a fairly short movie to begin with, but in my opinion, it does run a little bit too long. It drags a little bit, but you know what? Whatever. I guess I don't really care. It's just a fun movie. It's just a really fun movie, and it's got a lot of allusions to the original Django, which is really cool. And it even has a cameo from Quentin Tarantino, who directed Django Unchained, which just brings us full circle. Or brings Django Unchained full circle back into everything else. It's really interesting. And he has a much more prominent role than you'd think. Like, because I knew he was in it, but I didn't know he was in it as much as he is. But, I'm not complaining. It's just really funny to see him in it. It's got a lot of references to the original, from 64, I think. I think it's 64. If it's not, I'll post it in the comments, for whoever watches this. And, like, for example, like, a few spoilers here for the movie. Also, the movie is entirely a Japanese cast, which is just really fun and really adds a cool, samurai-ish flavor to the film. It really reminds me of another, this one actually came in the 90s, but a 90s, like, zombie action horror movie that came out of Japan called Versus, which is really cool. I'll probably cover that on my channel sometime, but it's a really cool movie that I really like. But anyway, it really reminds me of that, among other films, but anywho, there's a few references here to the original. Spoilers, like I said. Like, they carry there's a scene where they're dragging the coffin with the Gatling gun in it, like in the original Django. The main bad guys wear red, like in the original Django, and or some of the main bad guys. There are like two different factions. It really reminds me of I think it's Fistful of Dollars, where Clint Eastwood's character walks into a town and he's basically confronted with these two sides of the town, where it's like the reds and the whites, in this version at least, but where he has to basically just find his own place in this town and try to weed out the bad guys and take them out. And it's very much a theme of this movie. I think it very much reminds me of the Fistful of Dollars, and even the original Django has a plot similar to that too, and a few similarities here and there. And a very cool thing that I really liked, so little backtrack here, but in Django Unchained, I love the music in it. I always thought it was just really cool, like the theme for Django, the final song at the end of the movie. I love them both, and then to come to find out, very odd sentence, but when I found out that the theme for Django Unchained was the theme for the original Django, that made me love the original Django that much more. And what's cool about Sukiyaki Western Django is you don't hear the theme at all until the very end, when they like ramp it with like this electric guitar, play the song, but it's in Japanese, and it rules. It is so awesome. It's such a great end. So yeah, so Sukiyaki Western Django is a very fun time. It drags a little bit, but if you're into samurai films or westerns or spoofish movies and just mixing pot movies, and if you like Takashi Miike, this film is right up your alley. Gonna be right up your alley. It's a very fun film that I really enjoyed. Probably give it like a 7.5, maybe an 8. Probably 7.5. I think that feels right out of 10. So yeah, Sukiyaki Western Django, directed by Takashi Miike, and came out in 2007. Very fun film. So this is a Trial by Stone. Peace.